Hello, everyone. I'm Kimberly Adams. Welcome back to Make Me Smart, where we make today make sense. It is Friday. We made it to Friday, November the 3rd. Kai is out today, but as you can see, I have my dancing buddy with me here, Amy Scott. Hey, Amy.
Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining us on the podcast and everybody on the YouTube live stream. It's Friday, thank goodness. And that means it's time for Economics on Tap, our weekly happy hour special.
And happy hour means cocktails, alcoholic or non, whatever your pleasure may be. We're going to have some cocktails, see what you all are drinking, talk about what we're drinking, then get to some news, take a break, then play a round of half full, half empty. So let's start from the top. Amy, what are you drinking today?
Well, Kimberly, thanks to Tony Wagner's prodding yesterday, I had to plan ahead and I decided to make a hot toddy. So nice. I'm showing the audience
Oh, what
here.
A cute mug.
This is my special WYPR WTMD mug, Baltimore shout out.
Aww.
Yeah, it's gotten, the weather has turned, shall we say. It's gotten a little chilly. So I made my first hot toddy of the season on Halloween night and liked it so much, I decided to make another one. Yeah.
So how do you make your hot toddies? What do you put in them?
Well, I kind of like Google the recipe every time because I don't make them that often, but this is just hot water, brown sugar, bullet bourbon, and lemon juice. And then today I stuffed a couple of cloves in the lemon like wedge that I put in for a little extra. So yeah.
Fancy. How
about you?
I have I feel badly. I don't actually know how to pronounce it. I think it's a Boulevardier. It's something fancy. Anyway, last week, I'm stuck on the microphone. So last week I was kind of at a loss and I asked ChatGPT to I put in all the ingredients that I had in my bar at the moment and asked for a recipe that was Halloween themed and it gave me a cocktail. So this week I went back to the same ChatGPT conversation and I was like, what's another cocktail I can make with these ingredients that's not Halloween themed?
That's an excellent use of AI, Kimberly.
Hey,
I endorse.
Let the robot overlords make us cocktails. Anyway,
it's the least they can do for us.
It's the least they can do. So a Boulevardier, I think is how it's pronounced. But anyway, let's see what everybody else is drinking. If you want to look in the YouTube live
weigh in with
chat,
the
pronunciation, I'll look in the Discord.
All right, so we've got somebody drinking a diet cream soda. Nice.
Oh, nice.
Somebody else drinking decaf coffee, trying to be nice to my tummy. I love it. Let's see.
Somebody in the Discord is drinking licorice iced tea because just licorice tea because they caught a cold for the first time in 3.75 years. I'm so sorry, Urbana.
Whoa. Yeah, that's a long stretch, though.
Yeah, good for you. Michael's drinking Tanqueray and tonic. Gin is the devil. Not gonna. No. Anyway.
Well, that said, ahead. Nathan Schmidt is shaking up a martini, so I assume it's gin.
A gin or a vodka martini, though.
A 1911 Rose Hard Cider in Pittsburgh, PA. Not too far away from Baltimore. Unsweetened iced tea. Nice options here.
Yeah, everybody's having a good night. I love it. Okay, so let's get to news. Amy, why don't you go first as my light flickers on and off?
Uh-oh. Yeah, I hope it stays on. Well, at first I want to give a shout out to Morning Edition's coverage of the Israel-Hamas war. I've been listening every morning as I drive to my bar class, and I always have to pause in the parking lot.
Your bar class?
Bar, it's an exercise thing.
Oh,
that I
okay.
do.
Why? I was like,
It's a good thing.
Are you studying law? Are you about to take the
I know,
bar
it sounds
exam?
like right. It sounds like either I'm drinking and learning to shake cocktails or BARRE.
Okay.
Anyway, we can cut this. As I'm driving to my exercise class in the morning, I listen to their coverage, and today there were reports from people who were finally exiting Gaza into Egypt through the border crossing, and it was just incredibly moving and sad. So, I think those of our regular listeners know we're not NPR. They're close neighbors, shall we say, relatives. Just a shout out to their coverage. So I saw this one on Grist. The United Nations is out this week with a new report saying that developing countries will need between $215 billion and $387 billion every year this decade to adapt to changes caused by the climate crisis. And that's much higher than the UN estimated even just last year. So it shows how much more dire the crisis is becoming. It's also far more than wealthy countries have been providing. In 2021, developing countries received just $21 billion total for climate adaptation. So they need 10 to 18 times that. And that's what the UN calls the adaptation finance gap. As I'm sure you know, there's been a huge debate over how the countries that have really caused the climate crisis by emitting the most greenhouse gases should help these less developed countries pay for the damage. They're often paying the biggest price. They're more vulnerable to things like storm damage and sea level rise and extreme heat. And this report comes out just as world leaders will be gathering later this month for the next COP climate conference, COP28 in Dubai, where that issue, I'm sure, will be front and center again. At the last COP, which was COP27 in Egypt, wealthy countries agreed to set up a fund to compensate developing countries for the loss and damage created by climate change, which was a huge deal. Countries have been pushing for decades. But now that process is actually stalled over debates about how it will be funded, who will manage it. And so I think this report comes at a crucial time for countries that are trying to figure out how to prevent loss by, of course, mitigating the effects of climate change, speeding up the transition away from fossil fuels, but also if you pay money to adapt first, you reduce those losses. So things like early warning systems, investing in more resilient buildings and infrastructure. And the Grist story that we'll link to cites a study that found that for every dollar spent on adaptation, we can save as much as $10 in potential damage. So worth the investment, but it's going to be awfully expensive.
I mean, do you see any willingness on behalf of the countries that caused this to, increase funding in this direction or to take responsibility?
What's interesting is that I think it was 21 billion I cited in 2021. That was actually a reduction from the year before. And it was as the global pandemic was costing countries a lot of money, they were kind of turned inward. I don't know. I think people saw that step in Egypt as real progress when they agreed to create at least a fund. But it's going to take a lot more than, promises to really fulfill that obligation.
Yeah. Oh boy. I think that is going to be such an interesting story to follow in the years to come, sort of who pays for the cost. And I know that there was a story out where one of the early alarmists about climate change, came out with a paper along with a bunch of other scientists saying it's happening faster than we thought. We've already kind of blown past 1.5 degrees, and it's a serious thing, and we live in a privileged position to not necessarily have felt it directly here, even though other parts of the country have, but pretty soon it's going to be all of us.
Yeah, well, we are feeling it here, and I think that's what will finally get people
acknowledge
off their couches and do something about it.
Yeah.
So,
well, I've got one political-ish story. So people who have been listening know that Kai and I have been talking quite a bit about Alabama Senator Tommy Tuberville's blockage of many military confirmations. And, the Senate is still trying to find ways around this. But there's a very interesting article that I came across in Roll Call, kind of taking a look at the advise and consent function of the Senate more broadly when it comes to confirmations, because this is a role for the Senate in the Constitution. And, it's important, but the fact that this could be held up over and over again by one person in this way, makes people take a look at this a little bit differently. So I'm looking at this. The Senate Armed Services Committee estimates it considers 50,000 promotions each Congress, and a 2023 report from the Congressional Research Service put the number of military appointments and promotions at approximately 65,000 per 2-year Congress. But the congressional resume, the official tally of what the legislative branch does, says there were closer to 40,000 military nominations in the 117th. The idea that a committee of 25 senators is doing any kind of actual vetting for 40,000 to 65,000 officers is absurd on its face. So why do it? Because the Constitution says so. But it goes on to say that the framers never imagined a system like we have today. And it's not just military confirmations that have to go through the Senate. There are other confirmations on the executive side that have to go through confirmations. And, it's just, I've been so caught up in sort of the day-to-day of it. I hadn't sort of stepped back to think about the process overall. And I thought this was really an interesting analysis of the advise and consent role of the Senate and, whether or not it needs another look in light of the realities of how our government runs today, because that's a lot of, different, that's a lot of confirmations. Oh, it looks like we lost Amy's video, but can we still hear you, Amy?
I can still hear you. I can still hear you. I think my Zoom just shut down. Yeah, but it is kind of bananas that so many things that were never envisioned by the founders, we, adhere to.
Like the two of us hosting a radio show or existing with autonomy.
Yeah, that was never envisioned.
Never.
All right, I think I'm back on the video. Hi, everybody.
Fantastic. Okay, I have one other one. So this is my politics-ish story because it involves yet another federal agency, the Federal Trade Commission. So the Federal Trade Commission is in this big antitrust lawsuit with Amazon. And as part of that process, we get to see all these nice little legal filings. They give us details about the FTC's investigation into Amazon and things that they learn. One of them was, according to The Hill, Amazon made more than $1 billion in excess profits by employing a secret algorithm codenamed Project Nessie that inflated prices, according to a newly unredacted portion of the FTC's antitrust lawsuit. So basically what this did is Amazon used this program between, allegedly, 2015 and 2019 to raise prices by predicting whether other online stores would follow in Amazon price hikes. And using these predictions, according to the FTC, Amazon would raise prices when it was most likely to be followed and would maintain the higher price after other online stores adopted similar price hikes. They would stop doing it around the holidays when more people were watching what the prices were doing. But according to The Hill, Amazon reportedly used this secret algorithm to set prices for more than 8 million items purchased by customers in 1 month in 2018. That year, the e-commerce giant estimated Project Nessie brought in an additional $334 million in profits. So that lawsuit continues to bring out really interesting things about how Amazon operates as a company and also just, how we as consumers shop online and how easily that can be managed. Sorry, Jasper.
I couldn't help but wonder, is Project Nessie a reference to Nessie, the Loch Ness monster, the Loch Ness monster? I mean, if so, that just makes it even more kind of cringe,
I don't know.
right? It's like stealth.
But does it really exist?
Good point. Yeah, no one will ever know. I'm a believer.
Except for the Federal Trade Commission.
I see you, Amazon.
Okay, well, that is it for the news for now. We are going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to play a round of half full, half empty, and so we will be right back. Okay, great. Now it's time to play Half Full, Half Empty. Drew is out today, so we have a special guest host with a wonderful voice, Marketplace tech producer Daniel Shin. Hey, Daniel.
Hello, friends.
I love hearing Daniel's voice.
I want you to be hosting like a late night jazz show or something, Daniel. But
that would
you
require,
probably already have one.
I mean, that would require me having a personality or anything. But I'm not
Daniel, that's not true. You have a great personality. Anyway, that's another conversation for later. Let's do this game. Go ahead.
I'm about to give you, or rather, we're going to start, I guess, with a really controversial topic. Are you half full or half empty on our phones getting bigger?
Oh, that was a great interview. I am
You
half
go ahead.
empty.
No, you have to
I'm
tell
half
everybody
empty.
about it.
Oh, yeah. So yesterday, Kai talked to someone who'd written a piece kind of in search of a small phone and basically couldn't find one anymore. The closest we can get is like a folding giant Galaxy, I think he talked about. So it, it goes in your pocket, but then when you open it, it's like too large for most hands to hold. And I can relate. I actually have like smallish hands, and I still have a smaller phone, partly for that reason. I want to be able to like actually hold it in my hand. I do miss the flip phone, although I do like what I can do and watch on this screen.
You can still get flip phones.
That's what I hear, but
Yes.
apparently that it's getting harder to find, or maybe phones that have functionality.
Fair.
So what about you, Kimberly?
Wait, what was the question? Was it, are we half full or half empty on bigger phones or smaller phones?
Bigger phones.
Bigger phones. Half empty. I also prefer a smaller phone, which is one of the reasons that I consistently kept buying like the iPhone 6S or the iPhone SE refurbished over and over and over again. A, because it was cheaper, but B, because like it doesn't fit in the very limited pockets that women get anyway. They do not fit when they get much bigger. And so I like held on. I think it's still sitting over here. I still have like an iPhone SE that I use sort of day to day, but then I broke down and I got a different phone. It's one of the bigger iPhones to use for, like TikTok videos and, taking photos and video for our social media stuff that we do for Marketplace. By the way, we're on TikTok now. If you're, okay with the cybersecurity component, go follow us. So anyway, half
By
empty.
we, some
What's
of
the
us,
next?
some of us are on TikTok.
Some of us.
You mentioned the camera. That's one thing that I would not want to give up. I mean, the cameras just get better and better. And I'm the kind of person who loves to take pictures spontaneously, but would never drag a big old Nikon around. So if it has to be a trade-off and I need a big phone for the big camera, I guess I'm okay with it.
All right, what's the next one?
Number 2, are you half full or half empty on the concept of super commuting?
So this is the story about people who travel extreme distances to get to and from work, trying to take advantage of remote work where they don't have to come into the office every day and live someplace cheaper, bigger, and then just commute extraordinarily long distances, sometimes taking a flight every day to get where they need to go for work, or not every day, taking a flight whenever they have to go to work. I'm half empty, don't love the carbon footprint of it, but I also get it because, it's expensive to live in these places. On the other hand, though, I feel like the people who often end up with the kinds of jobs where they can do the super commutes tend to skew a little bit wealthier, more white collar. And so I'm half empty. I think like either get a job where you can work fully remotely or, try to live where you work as best you can. Although if you've got like caregiving responsibilities for a relative out of state, like I get that too.
Yeah, I would say I'm half empty as well. We know what the toll that commuting takes on people's lives and health and
Souls.
the aforementioned climate crisis. But I'm also, so many people are forced or have been forced into really long commutes just because of housing affordability challenges, having to live further and further from their jobs. And some people are doing super commutes like involuntarily, right? So
Yeah.
I just think if we can figure out ways to limit at least driving a lot, that would be good. And flying to your job. I mean, I get it. Sometimes, families are separated and there's a period where you'd have to commute to your job long distances, but I don't know. Have I really?
Yeah.
That's why it's called half empty, half full. I don't have to fully commit. I can just be sort of wishy-washy about it.
We can be halfsies. Although B. Patton says in the YouTube chat, long commutes equals time for Marketplace podcasts. I am in
Hey,
favor.
that's a good point, B. Patton. Cheers to
Good
that.
job. Good job. All right. What's the next one, Daniel?
I'm afraid you can't be wishy-washy with this next one.
Uh-oh.
Half full or half
Mm.
empty on company mandated cybersecurity trainings, which I assume you've all already done.
I did mine the day after I got the email. Thank you very much.
Oh my
Thank you
goodness,
very
you're putting me to
much.
shame.
Have you done yours yet?
Well, let me just say, we recently changed to these shorter quarterly trainings. I'm half full on that. Please, more of this. You can like
As
get it
opposed
done
to
in
the
15
3-hour
minutes.
ones
Just a little
that
chunk.
we used to
Yes.
do.
Right, because I mean, the other one we do on harassment is it's like the same content every year, but they change the actors and the backgrounds, and it's like, come on, people, we're content
They added
creators.
some non-binary folks.
That's true. Every year it does get a little bit more progressive on the gender stuff. That's true. But it's still like, I kind of feel like I've seen this movie before, and it takes a lot of time out of your day. So I think breaking it up into more digestible chunks is a lot better.
So, despite myself, I am half full on this because some of these phishing attacks are getting incredibly sophisticated. And with all of these, the AI factoring into it, and some of the stuff I see that my mom gets, and even I've clicked on, the errant fake phishing message that they use to test you and fail. I got a weird phishing message as a text message the other day that said, I had a delivery at the post office that wasn't going through and they needed me to come and get it. And I sent a screenshot of it to my friend who works for the postal service, and she was like, yeah, this one's really getting a lot of people. So I'm half full because it's rough out here in these cyber streets.
Yeah, and a few years ago, David Brancaccio and the Morning Report crew did this great series on aging and the brain and how we, as we age, become more susceptible to these kinds of attacks.
The
We just aren't
scams,
as
yeah,
quickly able
absolutely.
to recognize them. And so I do think training is good, especially as the scams adapt and evolve.
Yeah. And a lot of people
yep.
are pointing out in the chat that the Marketplace Tech had a story about the AI writing the phishing emails now, which can make it just so much more sophisticated.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, and lots of people have gotten the UPS text as well. USPS text. All right, Daniel, what's the next one?
Number 4, are you half full or half empty on the celebrity tequila boom?
Go ahead, Amy.
If I were a celebrity, I would have my own tequila. I mean, what else are they supposed to do to make money?
Especially during the actor strike. Well, a lot of them are on what is that thing, Cameo, where you can get people to do little videos for you. So celebrities and tequila. I like tequila. I'm mediocre on celebrities, so half
Just
empty
the
because
whole
I don't want to
existence of
get
celebrities.
Well, look, because I always worry that when you have these big celebrity branded liquors or wines or whatever, are you crowding out, sort of the craftspeople who would otherwise have space on the shelf with a really unique product with just sort of the branding? But, it doesn't matter that much.
Hopefully they benefit from some of these partnerships, because we know they're not like brewing their own tequila, right? They're partnering
that's
with
true.
some, hopefully, I would say I'm half empty too, just because, like, do they really need more money?
Some of them clearly do. So yeah, half empty. This next one is the poll, right, Daniel?
That's right.
Oh,
and
good.
The last one is...
So wait 1 second. So for people, I'm sorry, I was just laughing because somebody in the chat said, I feel about tequila the way that Kimberly feels about gin. It is the devil. I'm so sorry, Jason. Anyway, for the poll, if you're watching in the YouTube live stream and you're in the chat and able to participate, Amy and I are going to vamp for a minute or two without hopefully giving too much of our opinion while we tally the votes. And so go ahead, Daniel.
All right, the last one, if you're half full or half empty on the quote unquote last Beatles song that was made with AI.
Oh.
I think we just learned what Amy feels.
I let out a noise. Ignore my noise.
And you made a face. It's I like some Beatles songs, but I'm not just like the person who's like the Beatles are everything and always the best of the world of all history of music. And I appreciate what a movement it was for some segments of, you know, the population, but not everybody. I'm always surprised at their longevity, you know, and their ability to hang on and still draw crowds. And I wonder, you know, ABBA recently did another song where they kind of used an AI assist for the video, I think it was.
Yeah, were they
And then,
touring somehow with AI? I can't remember exactly the story. I may be conflating two things,
yeah.
but yeah.
But I do think that it's, and some folks in the chat are suggesting this as well. I think that sometimes a gimmick like this can serve to introduce a new generation to some music that they might really like, and that is interesting and gives them sort of a sense of a time period that they haven't experienced. And so, you know, if it makes some people who might not have ever listened to the Beatles, you know, give the music a shot for the first time, I think that's cool. I haven't actually heard the song yet.
Yeah, I was
I
gonna
need
say,
to
like,
go back and listen to it.
so I don't know this story. I missed this while I was in the podcast episode churning cave.
People are telling me
So
to
can we
lower our
play it?
expectations.
Yeah. So was
I
it,
don't.
Daniel, was it an actual Beatles song that was released with the help of AI, or was it actually written by AI in the style of the Beatles?
I believe it's essentially a mashup of sort of the Beatles, the four original Beatles, you know,
I
voices and
think
such,
wasn't
made
it like a
possible.
song that they wrote, and so they were able to get the voices because of AI?
Something
Mm,
like that.
okay.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
them, but AI sort of brought it home, as it were.
Okay. So Adam in the chat says it wasn't made by AI. It was based on a demo by John. AI assisted in filling in the gaps, and they used AI to separate his voice from the other noise. Brett says they used AI to uncover Lennon's voice from the piano, and lots of people. John wrote it, says
Yeah, there's some
Barbara. I
knowledgeable
love
folks
how
in
we're
the chat.
getting the whole narrative in the chat. Thanks. Oh, but Gigi asks a good question. Who's getting the copyright for the song? Interesting.
Yeah, right.
Okay, let's go ahead
So
and
what, yeah,
close
do we
this
have the
poll.
results?
We will in a second, but are you half full or half empty, Amy?
I am half empty because, I mean, I think it's an interesting experiment actually to bring something to life that we couldn't, you know, have. And, you know, I am a Beatles fan, and I'm interested to hear it, but I do just worry about, um, you know, the creators. At least John isn't here to say how his voice is used and how his music and his art are controlled. And so it sounds like Yoko was actually on board with this, given what somebody said in the chat. But I don't know. I feel like it doesn't feel right. It's just a gut half empty. That's what it is, folks. How about you?
Half empty on sort of the song and the, you know, sort of gimmicky nature of it, but a bit half full on the technology, simply because I also am worried about creators and their ownership of their music. But I also do think there's a really unique opportunity to use AI in music, like, you know, take, you know, how would, you know, Mozart interpret a Beyonce song? You know, you could ask AI to do that, and that could be fascinating and fun. And there's a lot of opportunity to play around that I think could be interesting if we can set up some guardrails that protects creators, because I also think that there needs to be some things that are special, you know, and some of what makes music timeless is the fact that it exists in a time confined by what was happening in that time. And I worry that if we take people's voices and music and ideas out of their time and their experience and just mess around with it with AI, we lose some of the magic of the music. So half, fully half, but that, I don't know. That's
Yeah.
that's what I've got.
You know, I
we
was
should
just
have given
thinking
the poll
about.
results.
Oh yeah, what
Wait,
are
one
the
second.
what are the poll
So,
results?
Right. Half empty, 65%, half full, 34%, with 161 votes on the last Beatles song made with AI. Most people seem to agree with you, Amy.
I was just thinking about something an old journalism professor of mine said, which is you can get away with anything as long as people know what they're getting. So I do think, you know, if you disclose what's been done, how it's been done, so people aren't fooled into thinking this is something authentic, you know, maybe play with the technology, see what you can get.
Yeah. All right, that is it for us today. If you have a question or a comment you want to share with our team, you can leave us a voicemail at 508, the letter U, the letter B, SMART, or email us at makemesmart@marketplace.org. I love how that's like your thing. Yes, you're the only one.
I love that I have a thing.
You do.
Make Me Smart is produced by Courtney Bergseeker. Today's episode was engineered by Jake Cherry. Our intern is Neelafar Shabandi.
The team behind our Friday game is Emily McCune and Antoinette Brock. Marissa Cabrera is our senior producer. Bridget Bodner is the director of podcasts, and Francesca Levy is the executive director of digital and on demand. I'm so happy to see you, Amy.
You too.